Hello and welcome back to the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 playthrough, and today we are tackling Metropolis Zone. Oh boy, Metropolis Zone. Yeah, if you know anything about this zone, or even the game, or just the game even, you know that this is most players' least favorite zone in Sonic 2. I almost said Sonic 1 there. And understandably so. I mean, the level design is just generally, at the bare minimum, in comparison to the other zones in the game, it's, like, pathetically bad. The enemy placement especially is where the level design is at its worst. The enemy placement in this level is just plain atrocious. You saw it at the very start of the level. Or not the very, very start, but pretty early on in the level, I got launched up, and then this little platform, like, opened up so I could go through. And as I was getting launched up, this crab enemy launches its arm out at me, and I get hit. And right there, I just straight up wasn't even paying attention. I just kind of spin dash, and I was like, hey, let's just go. But as I was saying, that crab enemy just launches its arm out at me, and I can't really dodge that. And on your first playthrough, you are always going to get hit by that because you don't know it's coming. There is, like, the way that the early classic Sonic games were designed was so that on repeat playthroughs, you would get better at the zones because you know the layouts, you know the faster ways to go. You generally, the muscle memory allows you to avoid getting the crappy routes. But in this zone, like, even on your first playthroughs of, like, a Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Sonic 3, or at least in most zones in those games, if not all of them, you can still get through it on your first playthrough without too many problems, and even the crappy pathways that are, what some may call them the first-time player pathways, are nowhere near as annoying as any of this kind of level design here. You saw earlier that there was a crab enemy that launched its arm out at me, and I went back, I jumped over him, and I jumped on his head, and I got hit. That happens twice in Metropolis Zone, actually. And I talked about, I believe in the Hilltop Zone video, how the hitboxes on a decent amount of enemies in this game just straight up don't work. In Hilltop Zone, there was that pinkish, purplish enemy, you hit his head, and then you could use his body to, like, navigate over the lava. I don't remember if I referenced the crab enemy directly, or if I just kind of said, yeah, that's not the only time this happens in this game, but regardless, this is the other time that it happens in this game, assuming that I didn't reference it then. There are also those little areas with the bolts. You go right to go up. If you run right, the bolt will go up, and if you go left, the bolt will go down. Whenever you do all of them, like any of those bolt areas, there are always these star enemies in the walls. You've seen them. They launch these little pellets, whatever the hell, at you. And when you're navigating those bolts, they can get super hard to dodge. Because your momentum carries you, and it's hard to stop that and go, like, the other direction. And it's not like you can just jump out of the way, because, once again, your momentum carries you in a way that, if you jump, then you're just gonna go flying right off of the bolt. And right there, as I talked about the crappy enemy placement, that right there, that is just plain annoying, and just, as I said before, I sound like a broken record, but it's true, all of it. It's just terrible enemy placement. Like, that spring gives me all that momentum, and then there's just a slicer there. That's the name of the Badnik. Which is impressive for me, considering I don't know the names of that many of the Badniks. But anyways, like, that spring gives me all that momentum, only to almost certainly get hit by that slicer. Like, I just think it's plain annoying, and there's more examples of just bad enemy placement as we go along, and here we have Special Stage 5. I'm gonna try, keyword is try here, not to harp on how bad I think the special stages are anymore, whether it's, oh, the draw distance, Tails' AI, unless it comes about in a way that I just can't not talk about it. I know there is at least one part where I have to mention it, but, yeah, I'm actually, giving myself that limitation really takes away my freedom of what I can talk about here. But, yeah, that's the end of the first section of, Special Stage 5. And there is a section in this special stage, it's right here, this section is, like, it happens twice throughout the special stage. That is clearly designed for multiplayer, and I think that that is so dumb. I don't know why you would design something like that. I don't know if it's to give the extra incentive for multiplayer while also being like, hey, if you go all around perfectly, then you can still get a lot of rings, and once again, Tails' AI, the delayed AI, makes these special stages really annoying, at least when playing with Sonic and Tails. But, anyways, that section that I was talking about, the rings going go left and right, go up and around the special stage, it's annoying, and you can see right there, at this point, I just stopped caring, because I was like, yeah, I just don't care about this anymore, because the special stage is kind of annoying. And I missed the special stage by 4 rings, and granted, I probably could have gotten it if I just, like, actually tried to go for a decent amount of the rings, because there was some on the top, and you could see that I just didn't even try to go for them. But I missed it by 4 rings, and shout out to Tails getting hit, obviously, because of its delayed AI reaction. Once again, I know I've said this many times before, I just don't understand how people will act like Tails overall in the special stages, having him there controlled with the AI is an overall net positive. And right here, I want to talk about more of the crappy enemy placement this game has to offer. So I come up with, you can see that crab enemy. It was designed in such a way where it's going to be really difficult to get past without getting hit. And so I try to spin dash past him. And then I get hit by the, by that little spring. I'm not quite sure what that actually is, but, there's this little smoke or whatever that comes out of it after it goes up and would launch you up. And it acts as a spring, basically, but that little smoke that comes out of the sides would hurt you. And I spin dash right into it, and it's not that the fact that it hurting you is an inherent problem, but it's the fact that, okay, you know, you have an easy solution, which is to spin dash past the crab. And then there's that obstacle there, which is just another handicap. Well, I'm not sure if another handicap is the right word, but regardless, another obstacle that comes about because you dodged another one, and that one was pretty much unavoidable. I mean, I end up just saying, you know what, if it hits me, I don't care, because I planned on just abusing the invisibility frames there, and the hitbox on the crab enemy not working correctly for the second time in this zone, I just don't know how that happens. I mean, I know how it happens, it's just, you know, shoddy programming of the enemies and their hitboxes, but how does that make it to the final build? I'm not saying that this game as a whole is a buggy mess, but I don't know, I'm just simply not as big on this game as other people. And if you remember correctly earlier, or actually, I don't know if I mentioned it, but the section with the bolts, it was one with a slicer at the top, and it makes it hard to land safely. That was the section I was talking about right there. Now, granted, I did kind of jump into his little knives. Once again, I don't know exactly what it is that he watches. But, that enemy, or at least when I went up the first time, he was placed so close to the edge that even if I didn't jump, I still think I probably would have gotten hit. And it's like, that's what I don't like. These unavoidable obstacles that are just, well, they are, as I said, unavoidable, pretty much. Like, especially when you dodge them and you go back to kill the enemy, and then you get hit anyway, even though you're hitting it in the right spot. Like the crab enemy, which the hitbox screwed me over twice. But yeah, once again, I don't like this level one bit. And, even another, example of pad enemy placement right there. Yeah, you're gonna go up, and it's gonna line up right with that little pellets that the star enemy is facing there. Or not facing, but firing, I should say. Don't know why I said facing. But, yeah, regardless. You'll notice here that I'm just saying a bunch of things I've already said. I said I believe in the Oil Ocean video, or maybe it was the Mystic Cave video, I'm not exactly sure. But I just don't... by Act 2, I just don't have all that much to say, because I've already said all that really needs to be said, at least about the zone in Act 1. And that is the end of Act 2 right there. And you'll notice that it ended with a goalpost, and if you're very observant, you will realize that all the other Act 2s in this game have ended with a little boss. Yeah, Metropolis Zone has 3 acts. Because people didn't like that in Sonic 1, and granted, I didn't really think it was a big problem with the exception of Labyrinth Zone. I said Labyrinth that time and not Marble Zone, because I noticed that upon looking at the footage, or the commentary, for a decent amount of these videos, I say Labyrinth a decent amount of the time when I mean Marble Zone. But never the inverse, though. A lot of people did not like the 3 acts in Sonic 1 because they thought it dragged out even in the best zones. I mean, as I just said, I thought that was... I don't agree. I really thought that was only the case with Labyrinth. But they bring back the 3rd act, and on top of that, they bring it back in what is plain and simple the worst zone in the game. Like, you can say, oh, well, I like Metropolis Zone for these reasons, but they brought back something that not many people liked, and on top of that, they brought it back in... I understand what they were trying to do. They were trying to make the end feel a lot more climactic, because this is like, I'm supposing is Eggman's base. But it just falls so flat because the level is just so annoying, and you're like, yes. Like, at the end of Act 2, you're just like, yes, it's finally over. I'm done with Metropolis Zone. Only for you to be like, yeah, Act 3. But, yeah, once again, I've said a lot of the things that I really need to say. I'm trying to think of new things to say, to be honest. Well, actually, if you notice, at the start of this act, my lives, as well as my score, were reset. Yeah, I game overed on this zone, or on this act, rather, but, I'm sure you probably could have figured that out. Yeah, actually, this isn't... It's definitely the first time I've done so on Metropolis Zone. A recent playthrough I had of this game, and I'm not talking about, like, this LP playthrough, but a different playthrough I had, I don't know, maybe a month ago, as I'm recording this? Actually, maybe a little bit more, but, you know, I got through the whole, or for the most part, the whole game, you know, very little trouble until Metropolis Zone, and then, you know, I game over to all that stuff. I also had a decent amount of, like, it was just a straight up brain fart, to be honest, at this point. Because I had gotten past this part in the run where I game overed. And then here I was just like, oh yeah, that's right, I'm supposed to go to the right. It's not like it clearly indicates it with the way that the gear is spinning. Another thing that I actually want to point out here is the inconsistency of how the star enemies fire. Like, you can see those 2, or those 3 actually, just straight up didn't even fire their pellets or whatever at me. And that 3rd one, that last one, out of that set of 3 didn't fire either. I said that the star enemies can make it difficult to navigate the bolts sections. I still stand by that. What I think is worse is how, you don't always know whether or not they're gonna fire, and I think that's annoying. And as you can see here, yeah, just abusing the invincibility frames, you know, nothing new. I talked about this on these, I believe it was the Hilltop Zone boss, on how I unintentionally abused the invincibility frames, and Tails got, like, all the hits, for the most part, like, maybe 7 of the 8. But, yeah, I'm pretty sure I die at least once doing this boss. And I do die on this go at it. I know that much. Or at least I think I do, because well, anyways, I'm pretty sure I die on this part, but this boss, on my first attempt, I was like, okay, so this is gonna drag on. Yeah, that's not the case. Also, spin dash not working, by the way. But this boss is a lot easier, and you can make it a lot faster than I originally had anticipated. Because with this, I actually don't die on this boss. Never mind. I guess that was a different playthrough. But yeah, yeah, I guess that's it. That will do it for Metropolis Zone. The worst zone in Sonic 2. And, in the next video, we will complete the game. And so, yeah, I will see you next time.